Mark, thanks so much for coming on the Not Too Cool for School podcast. I love your band Goalkeeper and your guys' music. You guys are awesome. How are you doing and what's going on with the band?
Doing well. It's a nice rainy Sunday here, right outside like Philadelphia, which isn't the worst way to spend a Sunday.
I feel that. I feel that. I'm in Arizona, and so where I'm at, we get monsoons in July. So all of July is just monsoons, monsoons, monsoons. But I love that. Dude, so Goalkeeper. Like I said, I love your guys' music. It's funny because when we connected, I was like, no, this can't really be them, but here we are. So I want to kind of go into first off, kind of how everyone really wants to know how the band formed, and I know you guys kind of talked about it a little bit. I saw an interview with Ryan, and kind of his perspective on how you guys formed. I think all of you guys were in different bands at the time, and you were a promoter. But kind of how did the band form from your perspective?
Kind of like what you said. I was a promoter and would do like a bunch of local shows in Philly. And I became friends with Ryan and Cody because I used to have their bands on my shows. And then there was one show I couldn't find like the last band for, and I had the idea of doing like a pop punk cover set because at the time like the band I was in broke up about a year prior to that, so I haven't been playing any shows. And Ryan's band couldn't play, so he was down to do it with me. And then we're like, all right, well, who do we ask to do drums? And we're like, oh, Cody, because he's great and he already knows all the songs because we did like the classic cover, Sugar We're Going Down, and so on. And then we did it. We had a lot of fun. And then Ryan and Cody's bands ironically called it quits right around then. So we're like, well, if we had fun together, why don't we just do a band?
Oh,
And you know, 6 years later, very very organic. No Craigslist musician seeking musicians thing.
which you'd be surprised how many bands actually formed because of that.
Oh, I've done it.
Oh, there we go. There we
Oh,
go.
I've done it.
It's it's kind of funny because you see a lot of bands that form in high school. I had a lot of bands in high school. Unfortunately, it's hard. Being in a band's hard, dude. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, you were a promoter when I was really trying to do it. It's hard because you're trying to. I mean, I don't know if that's how the game is anymore. But I'm sitting there trying to sell tickets. Social media wasn't as big. So for any band that's able to get a following, that's impressive. And to really keep going, especially 6 years later, that's awesome. The name Goalkeeper, where did that come from?
So when we started, like the sports references were really popular. So like knuckle puck, modern baseball, so on, American football, and we were just tossing out band ideas, and Ryan came up with that, and it was one of those instant. Yeah, nope, that makes sense. For some reason, just the name, just the sound of it was cool. There's like some other stuff too. Like we weren't gonna take ourselves very seriously, but there were a lot of things that our previous bands weren't able to ever do. So we did have like some goals we wanted to keep, you know. Um,
I love it.
so that's like kind of like the personal corny thing, but really it was Ryan tossed the name idea, and me and Cody are like, yeah, that sounds just sounds like a cool band name to us. So like, let's just roll with it, and something we still get complimented on from a lot of people. Like, oh, it's short, it's sweet, sounds like a band. People just need to start spelling it right.
Yeah. No, I feel that, and you're right. You have modern baseball, knuckle puck, all that good stuff, and goalkeeper does really sit. As a band, do you guys argue much, or because you really see when you guys do interviews or anything like that, you guys are all really in unison. But when you're in a band, obviously when you're writing songs or whatever it may be, there's I want to do this or I want to do that. Do you guys have that?
No, we established really early on that whatever idea someone brings to the table, it's not because it's like a selfish thing. So if I say if I'm really passionate about like a guitar lead or Ryan's really passionate about like a vocal part, it's not because we're trying to fuel our own egos of like I want this part to be on it because I like it and I wrote it. It's because we genuinely believe that this would fit the song. And so then if the rest of us go and say, hey, we don't really vibe with that, it's again, it's not a shot to that person. It's just, hey, we just think there's something better for the song. And I think that trust came really quickly with us because we were already friends first. And, we knew what each person did in the other bands. And then one of the things we did too, and I'll try to keep this short, is we established like our roles very early on in the band too. So, because I'm sure you've done it. I'm sure you've talked to, when you're doing interviews with bands, you'll talk to a person named Dylan, and then all of a sudden the person named Connor is like messaging back, and then Stephanie's like scheduling, and you're like, who am I talking to?
That's
um,
true.
so for us, I was always the business guy. They knew it from the promoter. So like, okay, Mark handles all the business stuff. Do I obviously consult them with ideas or offers and stuff like that? Of course. I'm not just like a lone decider here. But I also know Ryan and Cody write better songs than I do, so their role is the creative side. Ryan does all social media, some songwriting, Cody does songwriting, and like, so we just established all that stuff really early on based off each other's strengths and like weaknesses. And even if Cody wanted to do the business side of things, here's a great example. Ryan was originally a guitar player, so we always joke that he plays bass as a guitarist. um, we want to be a three piece. And so when we really just looked at each other and said, all right, well, who's a better guitarist? Who's a better bassist? I was a better guitar player than Ryan was. So that was like kind of like the first compromise of like, how are we going to like roll with this thing? So all that discussion and role identifying and everything came really early on. So trust was built really quickly.
That's awesome, man. And I guess kind of going into that, there's obviously there's three-piece bands out there, amazing ones. Like I know you guys love Blink. Everyone loves Blink for the most part. But as a three-piece band, I guess a couple parts into this. One, do you feel that writing music, managing the band is easier as a three-piece? And two, as a three-piece, do you guys get because I listen to your music, it's awesome. But do you feel that it's harder to get either a fuller sound or harder parts live because you are a three piece? How does that work for you guys?
I mean, everything has its plus and minuses. So, like, as far as managing and like doing with the band, all the business side, um, well, being three people, it's usually two against one. If one person, if we're not all in unison, and again, that also comes from trust. So, like, if Ryan wants to do something, me and Cody are very adamantly against it. He doesn't. He knows it's not a tactic. It's just what we genuinely feel. Plus, we always hear each other out. Even with the songwriting too. Like, we'll hear out an idea. But so making decisions a lot easier. Fitting in the van on tour, hell of a lot easier. Same with like gear and everything. And then as far as like getting a fuller sound, like obviously on record we'll layer guitars and do all the crazy studio tricks to get a nice sound. But we really dedicated our time into learning about gear and talking to people like musicians we've toured, like played with or look up to. And although we're not using the backtracks or anything that like pretty much 90% of bands are doing, we really probably should get on that at some point. Understanding like the guitar I play and the dynamics of that and the amp, and then volume control. And Ryan, same thing with his bass, understanding his head, his pedals, and Cody, even going down to the type of drum head. Like this gives this type of volume versus like output versus this head, and this will give you more of like this frequency of tone than this. And so, because some people think just the bigger and louder you are, the more full you're going to sound, but not always. Because if everything is ear piercingly loud and has a lot of like treble or high end, as we say, as some people will say, just because you're loud doesn't mean you're full. So we've taken a lot of time just to understand the dynamics, and because we still as a band practice and write in a rehearsal space, just the three of us turning on our amps and going. And so when we're rehearsing for tour, we can really hear, oh, and then does this actually sound full? So
That makes
and
sense.
um, and it's also pretty easy now with a lot of sound techs for at venues simply because they like working with a three piece who doesn't have all these like bells and whistles. So a lot of times they'll dial it in a little bit nicer for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and no, I've watched a lot of videos. Sadly, I haven't seen you guys live yet. When you're out here in the West Coast, and it's really hard when you're over there in West Coast and you're planning a tour. But every video that I've seen live of you guys sounds amazing. Especially since you're not doing any backtracking. That's awesome. And so kind of going into this next part. Um, let's say you're showing someone Goalkeeper for the first time, and you say, "Hey, I'm actually in a band. This is what I do." Yada yada yada. What would be a song, from, or I guess because all of you guys are different, right? Part of a band, but you're all different. If you were to show someone who's never heard Goalkeeper before a song to kind of, show this is our sound, out of your guys's, all of the songs you guys have, what would you show? Because if it were me, it'd probably be, either Sooner, which I absolutely love, and we'll get into that, or Sunshine, which, obviously Spotify recommends. What would be the song that you would want to show someone?
I would agree. Probably Sooner, if not our one song Car Wreck. And I think it's just because those two songs in particular, they're where we are now. So it's taking all the lessons and everything we've learned about songwriting, recording, playing, tone, all that stuff into account. So it really is the best version of Goalkeeper, even if some people have like their favorite songs like Sunshine or Chances or Pong Partners. These songs really are like the best of the band in our opinion. And specifically those two songs, I feel like they also encompass everything that we do. So the energy, the technical drumming, Ryan's really like big voice behind when he sings, some breakdown stuff. Like Sooner has the breakdown in the bridge, Carrick's got the breakdown and the turnaround after the first chorus. So those two songs really just encompass. Here's everything that we've done that we think we really like to do. And so if you want to know who Goalkeeper is, again.
So, excuse me. So, let's talk about Sunshine for a second here. That's actually the first song that I heard from you guys. Probably the first song that a lot of people heard from you guys. I don't know if, I mean, it shows on Spotify that's your number one. I don't know if it actually still is your number one, from the stuff you guys are able to see on the back end. But, you talk about this is where you guys are at now. I went to a Hot Mulligan concert probably a year ago or something. They have a song Shaylee Chanel that they're like, we love this song, it's great, but we hate playing it. Do you guys kind of feel that way about some of your older stuff, especially since you've progressed? Like for example, if you go on tour, are you gonna play Sunshine? Or is it kind of like, we wanna, lean into this area more, and yes, these songs were great, but this is where we're at now.
So we still play Sunshine, and it's still the number one song. The Spotify algorithm and all that just loves it. So we're not complaining. It's really that song and even that EP is because we weren't always a serious band. We decided to take it seriously around 2018, 2019 because we were just getting opportunities. We didn't think of our old stuff as anything, but people were like, hey, this is really fun. Here's a big show. And then we'd go and embarrass ourselves because we weren't ready. So we started taking our stuff. So that stuff really opened up. But I wouldn't say we don't like playing the songs anymore. I think we can definitely hear the difference of like fullness. So a song like Sunshine, we don't end with it anymore. We're actually ending with Sooner. But we can hear how much more full Sooner sounds than Sunshine because we learned how to write as a three piece and have a more full sound. Whereas the Sunshine days, we were still just a basic pop punk band writing, power chords.
Yeah, that makes
You
sense.
know, yeah, and the new record has a lot more open chords, to add some dynamic, match with the vocals, and also just add a bigness to it. So yeah, I wouldn't say we hate playing any of them. It's just we can definitely tell like, oh, this doesn't sound as full as the song before.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So let's actually talk about your sound. You know, the genre of pop punk has really changed. But I really like, you guys tend to lean, and correct me if I'm wrong, every listener's different, but you guys really lean into the happier side of punk punk. Obviously, you have like big bands like Neck Deep and State Champs who, kind of have that happy vibe, but also kind of have that depressing side. But when I listen to your guys' songs, like, while there might be, some sad lyrics, like for example, Chances, the bridge in that song, like, if I wasn't married and had two kids and I was back in high school, talking about moving on, that would have been like the dream song for me. Now that I'm married and whatnot, I kind of just tell my wife, "Hey, this is a good song." Um,
Yeah.
but you guys really lean into the happier side. Kind of pick yourself up. Life is good, and your music really represents that. But to your extent, your thoughts. What do you guys feel like your sound really is right now? Do you kind of lean into, hey, we really want to be happy, or do you want to kind of go in a different direction? What do you feel your sound is right now?
Well, to talk on the other stuff, we always just wrote about what we experienced. And so like we never wanted to, and being like a therapist myself, so like when we go into like the darker songs, we want to make sure it's genuine. We don't want to just write a song about feeling depressed when we actually don't maybe know what it's like to be in there's like really deep, dark pits of depression.
Yeah.
It's just disingenuine, and also it cheapens people's real life experience of mental health and the hardships. So we've always made sure that even if it's like a negative, not a negative, something like a sad song, that's something that Ryan and Cody, who write the lyrics, genuinely feel, and we're not just trying to like grab the attention of a sad person. You know what I mean? That's just disingenuine.
Oh, I love that.
But
Awesome.
yeah, and oop, as far as the new direction, because we're actually, it's funny you say that because we have been starting to write out some stuff and figure out. I think what we talk about more is just being a little bit more mature. So we're older. We're in our late 20s, early 30s. So a lot of the spiciness of being like a teenager, early 20s who has the world, who thinks they have the world by the gonads, doesn't
Yeah,
really exist for us anymore.
it's true.
So we don't really have that, and that's another reason too we were able to like trust each other because we started the band so much later. So like all the BS high school drama of stuff is kind of gone, for that, But so I think we're just trying to expand our musicality always and not just be an up the middle pop punk band anymore. Um, and we definitely don't shade to the poppier side. So we are, we're getting a lot of influence from bands like Heart Attack Man, Movements, Microwave is a big one for me, Arm's Length, even some later stuff from like 4 Year Strong. Like I know it was like considered their worst album, but like in some shape, way, or form has some really awesome like musical pieces to it.
It's true.
And then also, like the last couple of years since we have been working extra hard, like the hardships of that are coming and we're seeing them, like lack of money and we're not home as much, and people at home wish we were home more, and we're still really trying to get those like support slot opportunities and like a bigger label and like all that stuff that a band like goes for. And since we're not there yet, there's like a lot of that pressure that we're feeling of like we have to go harder, but then at the same time we can't go too hard because then we'll ruin our security at home.
No, that makes
So
sense. That's hard.
it is, and being older, there's more. I have a wife and rent that I have to pay, and Ryan just moved in with his girlfriend, and they want to take the next steps in their relationship, and so it's kind of hard to save up for all that stuff and to consider having kids or buying a house when you're like, but I got to go on tour, and I'm not at the level where I'm like funding my life with this.
It's funny that you say that. As someone, I've been married, I'm going to be married 7 years in August. I have two kids. I just had my second one a month ago. Um,
Congrats.
Thank you. But I tell my wife all the time, like, there, because even if you don't accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, you still think about them.
Mhm.
So I mean, especially for you guys, I think that's awesome. And you probably have really supportive, girlfriends and your wife, who are like, hey, I'm sure it probably causes arguments at times. But it's awesome that they're like, you know what, go get this, and that you guys are doing it, because really there's only one chance to really do this, because it's either, hey, I'm married and now I have kids. It's like, do I pursue these dreams, or do I commit to my relationships and my kids and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff? So it really also comes down to, do you have great, wives, girlfriends, companions,
Hmm.
that really help and support that. So I also wanted to ask a question on this because you guys put out your last album about almost a year ago. I think it was late October. With Sooner and all that, great album. And obviously during this process, you guys are writing new stuff all the time for bands that really transition their sounds, because I can hear the difference between, like you said, Sunshine and Sooner.
Hmm.
Just to give an example, but then you have bands like, and it's not a diss on them because I love them, but like for example, Grayscale really changed their sound. Um,
Hmm.
and then, even A Day to Remember really changed their sound. Um,
Hmm.
and when you're looking for something from them, like, why did you guys do this? They give like a simple statement like, oh, this is what we wanted to do. For you guys, to kind of get like, as a band that, you guys have a following, all that good stuff, when you are trying to develop a sound, what is your thought process? Do you guys take into like, oh, our fans really like this, but we really want to do this, so we don't care? What's the thought process that goes into it?
Um, I think the biggest thing is what we want to do as musicians and what makes us feel creatively satisfied. And so when I'm writing new stuff, you know, like I'll just be straight blunt with you right now. When I play like a standard pop punk song or I like write that, I could not want to do anything less. Like I want to add more, like I want to write. And when I say more complex, it's not like, oh, it's like so crazy it's hard to like digest, because that's just not who Goalkeeper is. It's just I want to write stuff that I feel like I'm really stretching my musicality, and I'm kind of going beyond what just pop punk is. Because even if you look at bands like Blink and Green Day, yes, they're pop punk bands, but they've incorporated so many different styles and ideas, but they never lost the core of who they are. And so that's what we look at is, how does a band like Green Day go from writing a song like Brains Do to writing one of the greatest records of all time with American Idiot that just does not sound like a punk record, just sounds like a giant rock opera of the
Yeah,
generation. And but like at the same time, it's unapologetically Green Day. And so
I
that's like what we do. So it's like, what do we want to, what is going to make us feel creatively satisfied as a guitarist, bassist, drummer, vocalist, songwriter? But then how do we do it in a way that's very much a goalkeeper? So we're expanding, but we're not losing who we are.
No, that's a great response. So let's actually dive into you as the guitarist real quick. So, when you're writing your leads, your riffs, all that good stuff, do you look at the lyrics and then you go, okay, do I make a sound based around these lyrics, or do you write something that you're like, I feel really passionate about this, you bring it to the band and then they base their lyrics off of that. But what is your process for writing music? Because it's, really the guitar that's going to bring that power, the catchiness, all that good stuff. So what's your process?
So actually, the two examples you gave is how I do both of it. So, like in a song we were working on at practice yesterday was something that I've, wrote in my room here and then would bring to the guys and came back and rewrote some more stuff. So sometimes it is just here's the music that we get really hyped on and we think it's just fun to play. So then we want to put lyrics on it. But then there are times where Ryan will bring in like a basic four chord song, says, okay, I need your help to find the right key and everything that matches the emotion of the song. And then when I'm building my chords, depending on the lyric or what the vibe of that song is I'll know like, do I play this A chord or this A chord, or do I play these notes with that A? It's just all that stuff. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And again, having those long discussions as a band when we're talking about a line or a lyric or something really helps you understand what's happening and like what's going on, and then you can find the music that matches that. um and even yesterday, Cody and I, this is how detailed we'll get, and we've learned this from the people we got to work with. He was hitting the ride cymbal, but he was kind of tapping it for the chorus. He's like, should I kind of just do this or should I really lean into it? And the statement that like I said and Ryan and Cody agreed is, well, let's see let's see what chorus Ryan writes and how he delivers it. Because if it's really aggressive chorus, you got to lean into it. But if it's more of like a pulled back chorus, like tap on it, you know. And so just like that type of thinking, and the same thing goes in with the guitars. Like, is this a part where I really have to have this huge, big open chord hitting the string so hard I might break them, or more of like a really pulled back, like quieter two note part.
So, excuse me. So, let's kind of lean into that for a sec. You know, you guys are writing songs. For you, you know, what is making you happy with the music that you're writing right now? So to kind of separate it from, you know, the other things, obviously you're writing these songs, you know, you bring something great, awesome. But to you, what makes you most fulfilled with the new music? You know, you don't have to go into it because obviously, you know, we're going to be excited to hear it when you release it. But what is making you most satisfied with the stuff that you're writing now compared to past stuff?
We're definitely using, for those who play guitar, like, you have a key of a song, there's like all the different chords that go with it. And you have the chords you lean on that make up the perfect structure or whatever. So we're using a lot of the off chords that you wouldn't typically use. Um, there's also just a different energy. And again, we're writing the stuff now, but by the time we want to record, like we could be something completely different. But I think it's a little bit heavier. We're using those off chords. There's a different type of energy to the songs that we're trying to bring. Like we're really focusing on the crowd interaction. So our photographer Bill, who's been coming with us the last couple of tours and doing all the photos that people have seen, he's been introducing us to like the hardcore side and the heavier pop punk side that maybe we weren't always familiar with. And one thing that a lot of those bands like do is they create parts in a song that's like really just for the crowd to vibe, two step, mosh, whatever, right? And so we're trying to work on bringing some of those elements to our songs because if you listen, like a song like Sunshine that's like in the 2 minute rate, there is no fat on that song at all.
I feel that.
Yeah. Even sooner, it's just part, and then song's done. So for us, it's like, we're feeling really satisfied in, okay, this is going to be a part where we could see the crowd wanting to start just going nuts. It's
That's
just a vibe. It's just going to bring different energy to our shows. We're not just the hyper lovey pop punk songwriters, but there's going to be like a groove here that might get some people wanting to move, and it's just going to be fun.
And especially, you know, on your guys' end, you want to see the crowd move. There's nothing worse than an inactive crowd.
Oh, there's
Um,
nothing better than just seeing people lose their goddamn mind.
oh yeah, I love it. So I guess this final part before we move into a different section, but you know, you mentioned earlier that you guys are in a completely different phase of life. You know, it's not like, yeah, you guys have, you know, you're married and Ryan has a girlfriend. I don't know if Cody's dating anyone, but you know, it's a different phase of life, late 20s, early 30s. Do you guys find that your music is different? You know, not just lyrically, but musically as well, just because it's not like, you know, well, I'm not in my early 20s or late teens anymore and I'm angry because of this breakup. So now I'm, you know, going to go write this angry pop punk song, but I have to make it happy. Do you find it's a little more, you know, hey, there's this and there's that? Um,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
you're
different perspectives for sure. I mean, now when you break up like in your 30s, like you still are angry. I'm not gonna, and obviously depending on what happened, you could be like really angry. But the experiences that we have had that we write about, going back to my point before, we're not gonna write about something we haven't experienced. It cheapens someone's experience of that. Um, a lot of the times, like when we're breaking, it's like, yeah, well, maybe I could have done more. I think I kind of fucked up there a little bit. Yeah, I'm pissed off that they broke up, but when I really take a step back and see the whole picture and not just what I'm mad at and have the blinders on, I see that there's a lot more that maybe I could have done. Or, you know what? It sucks that you don't want to be with me, but then at least I know I'm not with someone who doesn't want to be with me, so I can go find someone who does. That's not a very 18-year-old mindset.
maturity.
Exactly. So I would definitely say when we're writing the lyrics, especially if we're talking about something on the like the darker side, we're definitely bringing a wider perspective of that situation, and so we're incorporating all of the emotions that go into it, and bringing more like authenticity from our experiences into our music, and hopefully it connects with somebody else as well.
That's awesome, man. Thanks so much for that. So heading into this final part of the interview, all you guys are awesome, but it's really hard to, I mean, even if you go up to, to go buy some merch or something, you're maybe getting, 30 seconds to a minute with the band, depending on how big they are and whatnot. So it's really hard to understand, who this person is, because it's like, hey, great to meet you. Oh, you put on an awesome show. Oh, where are you from?
Mhm.
The thing. So to kind of dive into you guys a little bit, for example, I'm a big nerd. I love music, all that kind of stuff, but I'm also a huge nerd. So I got to ask, who is the biggest nerd in the band?
Mm,
Although nerd is mainstream.
Cody watches the most. Like he'll be the one to go to the movie theaters to see like the new MCU movie. But Ryan's a giant dork when it comes to like cryptocurrency and
Oh,
all that shit. And I'm and I'm a nerd in the sense that like I'm always just studying something. So like even like with music and business, oh, did you listen to Butch Walker's newest interview on such and such podcast where he talks about the G chord?
that's
So like kind of like we're all nerds, but we're nerds in like four different things. Cody's like the pop culture nerd. Ryan's like the crypto, you know,
deep in depth.
yeah, and then I'm just like constantly studying something, psychology or music business or anything like that.
That is awesome, though. I'm a huge anime nerd, so every time I try and bring it up, I mean, it's kind of become more mainstream nowadays, but it's still kind of like, oh my gosh, are you serious? We're talking about this again.
You'll
Um,
have a great conversation with Cody if we whenever we get out to Arizona.
Yeah, there we go. If you guys are out here in Arizona, I'll go and we can have a great conversation. But as a band, like in general, because that's obviously all of you guys are different. One's going to the movies, one's deep in cryptocurrency, which we might be heading there pretty soon. But different topic. But what do you guys as a band? What do you guys typically talk about? Because if he's interested in this and he's interested in this and you're interested in that, what do you guys tend to vibe as a band when you're talking?
I mean, the nice thing about all being friends is we will tolerate whatever someone wants to talk about. So if Cody wants to talk about like the new MCU movie, all right, yeah, let's talk about it. If I want to talk about something, you know, business wise that we can incorporate to the band, all right, let's talk about it. This is something Mark appreciates, or this is something Ryan, we're over the crypto thing. but
Just so you know.
but no, but even before, like when he would talk, it's just I don't know, like we're friends, and we just if it's something that's important to you, we'll talk about it. But we do have a lot of things like in common, like sports. Obviously, we're from Philadelphia, so we're just always perpetually angry and sad. Even with the Super Bowl of the Eagles and the World Series for Phillies, like everyone was like, "Oh, three of your sports teams made the championships, and they all lost." So like, we
It's
want to throw batteries at Santa Claus again.
there
Um,
we go.
but I mean also just like music in general. Just we're always just talking about our songs and our set and like what we can do, and because we've been touring a lot more and seeing lots of parts of the country that we never thought we'd see like in a lifetime, like Corpus Christi. We spend a lot of time just exploring the cities and talking about it and how cool it was, and like our memories of playing a city like Corpus Christi, Texas, or Lakeland, Florida, um, stuff like that, Tulsa, Oklahoma, because those aren't places that really you ever think you'd have a reason to go to if it wasn't like work related.
It's true. As a band, and we'll wrap this up here in the next few minutes. But as a band, what is the hardest part that Obviously, you guys get along, you're all friends, but from your perspective, what do you think the hardest part of being in a band with your bandmates is?
Um, I would just say the hardest part, and this isn't a slight to anyone. It's just each of us, we all want the goal of making this a career, but each of us have different things going on in our lives that sometimes we have to like sidestep for a second, and that can be, you know, that could like selfishly that could be frustrating. You know, like if we want to do like a tour, but like Ryan can't, is it the end of the world? It's not, you know, but it's something like me and Cody want to do. So sometimes just, or if you know, if Ryan and Cody really want to do like a certain like T-shirt or write a certain like lyric in a song, and I'm just like shaking my head like, ugh, like. So I guess the biggest thing is compromise. Like at a band like at ours, and even at any stage, I think compromising is always the hardest because you can be the best of friends, but you also have, you know, you also do kind of have a different idea of like what's really important, and you see that with bands now. I mean, plenty of bands will say we shouldn't be touring, we should just be on TikTok. And then the rest of the band has to accept not touring when some of them might really think we should be touring more, you know, and stuff like that. So, yeah, compromise is the biggest part. But again, anytime one of us comes up and says, "Hey, I want to do something this way or this way," we trust that it's not out of selfishness.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Mark, this has been amazing, great interview. I have loved everything that you have said. Go ahead, shameless plug before we end this up. What is Goalkeeper up to? What are you guys doing? What do you want to get out there?
Well, we leave for another tour in May. We're gone from the 20th and 4th, and that's basically Northeast and Midwest. So just go to all the socials, at Goalkeeper Band, straight across the board. So type it in, you'll go get it. Stream the new record, and we have a bunch of summer dates with our friends in Driveways and a couple of festival appearances.
I will try and figure out that one because you guys in Driveways would be freaking awesome because they don't go on tour very much. So Goalkeeper.
No, every single show we've played with them has gone absolutely bonkers. So we've been fortunate enough to play around 10 shows with them now, and close to 10, and every single time it's insane. So, but yeah, just check us out for tour date. Come say hi, listen to the record, share it with your friends, and I would say that's about it.
That is freaking awesome. Mark, thank you so much for coming on Not Too Cool for School. Everyone go check out Goalkeeper, their music. Look out for them on tour in May and later this summer. And thanks so much again, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, man.